Welcome back to the Flipside. Galen Clavio here, along with Brian Moritz. We are out of our normal period of podcasting. We decided to do this in the afternoon, and I'm glad we did. This is actually a beautiful day to podcast. Got some meat on the smoker, got some work done this morning. Everything's exciting. Brian, I'm glad you were able to join me. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Like you said, beautiful day. We actually have summer weather up here in upstate New York. It's pushing high 80s, which is nice for a change. We've had a very wet and crappy late spring so far, so this is good. So what else? Oh, my kid had a successful dentist appointment this morning, so that was awesome. Yeah, so everything is good on that. So excited to be here, maybe starting a new morning trend. And hello to everyone watching us live on the YouTube channel.
Yes.
We got it working, and by we, I mean I got it working this week. Since so the ultimate irony, this is funny. So last week, if you listened, we tried to do it live, and it was, well, we did, but poor Galen had, poor Galen had to jump through like 87 different hoops of like a gaming console thing to do instead of doing the Google Hangout. Okay, and so the ultimate irony was I usually use Google Chrome as my web browser, and I was using it, and I couldn't get the Google Hangouts to work right on Google Chrome. That's important to note because right now I am using Safari, the Mac version of it, and it's working just fine. So
that's always how it goes.
Rain on your wedding day.
Anyway, so we wanted to. Well, we're not going to do our normal. What are you drinking right now? Things because it's 11:40 in the afternoon.
Well, I'm drinking Trader Joe's coffee, so I am drinking something. There's just not the usual what we drink. So
I'm having some water, some city water in my Camelback here. So yay for me. I guess I could grab a LaCroix, but
right,
that'd be just like the evenings at that point.
Exactly. You got to stay on brand with that. So so we have I know we have one major topic that you had thrown out there and suggested, and I think we could easily talk a lot about that. But there's one thing we kind of spitballed our recording in the morning was, and this has been on our topic list on our now abandoned Google Doc for at least a season now. I think it came on early season 4 that you first put it on there, and we actually haven't talked about it. So maybe we can throw it out there today. And the idea came from, I was reading my local newspaper online, the Democrat and Chronicle here in Rochester. And they do just one of the awful things that newspaper websites tend to do now is not only do they have autoplay video, but they have, I don't know, I'm sure there's a technical term for it. You may even know it, but it's the autoplay video at the top of the story that starts playing. And then as you scroll down to avoid it, the video like shrinks and moves into the lower right corner of the browser. So it follows you around and is still playing. And so I think our discussion was, what's the worst media sin, if I'm remembering this correctly? Autoplay videos like that, or the aggressive ad blocking shaming, which was your suggestion or topic or whatever. So I mean, I am all about, I think that ad block, the autoplay video is the worst, but I'll let you have a say here, and we can kind of expand this a little bit probably.
Well, I mean, I think they've both got things that you would argue against them with. I mean, that's the biggest issue I run into with the ad block shaming is that at the end of the day, it's like, you know what? Your company has not demonstrated the trustworthiness to allow me to allow you to run what could potentially be malicious scripts on my computer. So I'm not going to just be like, oh yeah, sure, I'll turn my ad blocker off for your content, when I was probably only interested in your content because of a link that I saw somewhere. Like, it's not like I needed the content. But I would argue that the what newspapers do, whether it is the autoplay video stuff or whether it is, accessing a newspaper on your phone and, you get a third of the way into a story and the whole screen is taken up by an ad with an impossibly small X to try to click to get it to go away. I would argue that that's worse. And I'll say it from this perspective. Someone was making a joke on Twitter this weekend along the lines of, people say, oh, newspapers aren't going to survive. Online media is the only thing there. And they're like, well, who do you think writes the stories for online? Meaning like, oh, newspapers are still here.
That old argument, yeah.
Newspapers do a crap job of being online entities because most of them, I'm fine with the Washington Post model or the Wall Street Journal model, where it's like, you know what? our content costs money. It's not a huge amount of money. You can pay the money and access our content, or you cannot and not. But we're not going to make the actual reading process an utter impossibility. And most other most newspapers, their websites just go the exact opposite direction. They say, oh yeah, here's the piece, but then bam, here's a huge pop-up window where, hey, here, take this stupid survey that one of our ad partners is putting in, or hey, we really want you to watch this video even though you're really here to read the piece, so we're gonna put that right in the midst of what you're trying to do. And it's just like, the newspaper industry, this is not newspaper writers, so anybody who wants to get pissy with me on this, shut up. This is the business side of things. They're running, in my opinion, neck and neck with the airline industry for like most tone deaf customer service and most tone deaf customer experience. This idea that we don't trust the audience, we don't really know what we want from the audience except for money, and we don't care about the environment or the experience that they have. So we're going to make it as bad as possible for no good reason whatsoever, because what it does is it drives people away. People don't want to fight through that, and people don't want to have something that they're trying to read on their phone where if they hit the wrong button, they're now suddenly on a different website looking at an ad they didn't ask to look for in the first place.
It's abysmal. And, look, I am, most people who listen to this know I'm a former newspaper guy. This is stuff I study. So I am I know that how much the newspaper industry, and again, we're talking about the business side of it. It's a struggle. Like, they're struggling to figure out a business model that's going to replace the one that's no longer relevant. And so much of what newspaper websites do online is still very much driven by the kind of the traditional print practices, the traditional print model. That's why you have what's it now called, like scoop o'clock, like between 5 and 7 o'clock, when like the big New York Times Trump story of the day, or the Washington Post Trump story of the day, or even the Wall Street Journal, most of those stories are coming out. The big ones come out at 7 because that's when they're being filed and put into the print production. And it's a complicated issue. I get that. What was really funny to me was I got into a Twitter argument a few months ago now with I think a somewhat bigwig at a Gannett newspaper. It might have been the Rochester one. He asked me my opinion on ad blockers, and I told him how I use one, and I understand why people use them. And I know it's a complicated issue for publishers, but as a user, I understand that. And he came back with this very tone-deafy newspaper argument that anybody using an ad blocker is stealing, and that it's the amount of theft, which we won't even go into the number of ways that that's a false analogy here as yes. But so here's the problem, or one of the problems. So I loaded the story of that I was trying to read on the Democrat Chronicle. And I'm seeing this a lot on Gannett sites more than any other.
Oh yeah, Gannett's probably the worst at it.
Right. And so I have the little ad blocker in my extension window on Chrome, and it says how many ads that are blocked. Now on one news story, there are 122 ads blocked on this one page. Now, I don't even know how that's technically possible to have 122 ads and scripts and stuff running on one page. And it's a bad user experience. Like, I understand, I completely understand and get trying to get digital advertising and get digital money and the struggle for that. I get that. That's, I'm not arguing whether it's a good business perspective or not. What I'm arguing is that it's a terrible, terrible user experience, that without this ad blocker, it's terrible. And to your point on the mobile ads, what's happening with me is that a lot of times I feel like I'm getting the big ad that comes up, which is terrible, and the little X that you can't see. But it's also then trying to automatically direct me to the App Store to download their app or something like that, and you can't get out of it and get back into it. And it's just, and yeah, and the other thing you're right on is that it's much more the tracking stuff that I'm upset about. I don't care if people want to advertise on the web. My site has ads. I don't make any money off of it, but I understand advertising exists. But it's the tracking model of it. It's the what information of mine are you getting, and then is that ad scraping off of my browser and then selling to somebody else that I don't know? And it's a terrible, and it's too bad, because they're, like you mentioned the Post, you mentioned the Wall Street Journal and the Times. I'm not going to, this is a really strong age for a lot of digital journalism. There's a lot of great stuff in terms of the stories, in terms of the content. For all the bitching we can do about the stuff we hate in sports media and in news media, we can find a corollary of people doing great work and fantastic work and important work. But it's just bogged down in this terrible, user experience. And I say this in my classes all the time. It really does feel like, we're soon going to figure out our digital business strategy. We're going to figure it out. We're almost there. We're close. And I taught my students, we were saying that in 1997 when I was a junior in college and we were just starting the internet. And it was smart people are going to come along and are going to figure out how to make money off of it. And here we are 20 years later. And now we just have a bunch of ad blockers and misery.
I mean, look at what YouTube does, where there's a lot of people make a lot of money on YouTube with advertising. And yet the process is so simple. It's like you go to a video, you click on the video, and if you've got the YouTube Red subscription, you don't see the ad. If you do, it pops up. Sometimes you have to watch the whole thing. Sometimes you can skip after 5 or 10 seconds. And it's really not that big of a deal. And you don't feel like you've been violated. You don't feel like they're trying to sneak it past you. They're very straightforward with it. And they're just like, here's the ad. Here's what you need to do. Yeah, they need to watch it or you need to skip it. You don't get that option with newspapers. With most of the newspaper websites, they basically try to take over your browser. And it just baffles me how somebody, large companies haven't looked at that and said, we're not doing this the right way. Because look around at the rest of the web. Look at, when you go to ESPN.com, do you have bad experiences with ads there? Do you
with ads? No. With autoplay video, yes. But I believe it's easy to turn off. But with ads, no, yeah.
When you go to most of the other destinations on the web, you go to a company's website, they're not inundating you, generally speaking, with stuff that you don't want. And it's like, that's just such a simple concept for me that, the idea that nobody realizes that that's having a negative impact. And, their argument, I guess, is, well, if we don't do that, we can't recoup any money. Well, that's the same mentality that led you to this position in the first place. This idea that, we have to recoup X, Y, and Z. Well, that's, there's organic ways to find revenue within the model. Like, what you're really missing is something you're never going to get back, which is money from classified advertisements. Well, don't try to recoup that by, making the user's existence miserable while they're trying to access the content that you are claiming is worth them spending money on getting in the first place. Like, that just doesn't make any sense.
Right. Now, you may know more about this than I do. What's the rationale for an autoplay video? Because that's my pain in the butt. I hate video. Now, is it just so that it automatically plays so they get a play for the advertiser? Because there's got to be a reason. Like, they don't just introduce it for no reason other than, hey, this autoplays. So
I think the rationale, from my understanding, is twofold. One is yes. I mean, the idea that you're getting plays, and even if it's just a second's worth of play, that you can put that into some kind of category and be like, well, look, we had 80,000 plays on this video. And in fact, it was actually only watched like, a quarter of those times, if that. But I also think that, again, with newspapers, and I think with ESPN, it's a different sort of argument. With ESPN, I think ESPN goes off the idea that you would rather watch video that was already there on this topic that you're trying to read on, and they also want to tie you in with their existing program. It's this synergistic thing that they try to do. Sure. The problem with newspapers is, newspapers have tried to invest in video. They've tried to go out and do, video reporting to go along with their stories, but they don't know how to market that. Like, they don't know how to create a separate channel in many cases and be like, hey, here's where you go for the video versions of this. They're just like, well, we did this report, so we need to make sure that people see it. So we're going to pair it with the article that people are writing or have written. And I guess the idea there is, well, then people will see it. We can be assured that people are going to see it. And I just think that's a terrible process, because you're basically, now you're not only using the video as an afterthought, but you're also creating a situation where you're giving people something that they're not asking for, and at the end of the day, you're not doing you're making your video seem unnecessary and to some degree unwelcome.
Yeah, and I remember learning how to do video again 10, 11 years ago at a newspaper, and yeah, the idea that it's always this kind of supplemental thing that goes along with it, which isn't, I don't necessarily think, negative. You're a newspaper, you have a very kind of certain skill set to it, and a certain thing you bring to your community, or certain skills of journalism, of reporting, of structuring stories and stuff that that you should build on. But yeah, it's just the whole video thing is just, it seems like a lot of times now newspapers do it because it kind of became this weird organizational circle thing where, like, you started doing it because you felt like you had to, and now you do it because you have to do it. And there's no, I don't know. I'm not a video guy online specifically, so I would much rather always read something than watch video. I know I'm very much in the minority, I think, on that, or very much in the kind of a vocal minority, but I don't know. It's a bad experience.
I mean, I love video and I like watching video, but there's times I just want to read an article. I don't necessarily want to watch. Maybe I'm in a spot where I'm not getting good reception, or maybe I'm in a position where I can't hear the video, but I just want to read about it, and I can go back and watch it later. So I don't know. Again, it's like, what's convenient for the company should not be the primary thought process. It's what's convenient for the consumer, and how are they consuming the product. Right. And, and that's where, I guess, going back in the autoplay video versus pop-up ad thing, I would say the pop-up ads are worse because, that's when you make it impossible on a mobile device to access the material. I mean, the autoplay video stuff can be bad, but generally speaking, those get filtered out in that environment to some degree.
That's true.
Whereas the pop-up ads are still there. So
that's true. So, all right, now that we've fixed the newspaper industry, let's move to the important things. Did you get any response on the call? Because I didn't call for topics. I didn't see any on mine. Did you get any? We
had a couple. All right. So we can get these relatively quick. Our longtime listener, Dr. Hoosier.
All right.
Okay, so there's a soccer question, which you're not really interested in answering, but
I'm interested in answering, but I won't do a good job of it.
I'll address it real quick. So the question, to do the setup first, the U.S. played Mexico last night in a World Cup qualifier. Did you watch the game?
I did not. I was watching the Tony Awards last night.
You didn't watch hockey either.
No, it's Tony night. So,
well, anyway,
I know
the U.S. has struggled historically when they've played at Mexico's Estadio Azteca, and so surprisingly, they came out and they scored in the 8th minute and held the lead for like 15 minutes, which I think they'd only led like 30 or 40 minutes ever at this stadium. And then Mexico scored to level it up. And then it basically was kind of a slogfest the rest of the way. Mexico had some chances. U.S. had a couple. It ended up as a 1-1 draw, which was a very good result for the U.S. playing in Mexico. It was a very pragmatic approach by Bruce Arena. They got the lead. They kind of buckled down at that point. They played, in effect, what were 5 defenders, which is a lot in soccer. So Dr. Hoosier asks, is the pragmatism Bruce Arena exhibited last night at Azteca something we really should be celebrating at this point in USMNT history? This goes to this may be the only, not the only sport, but on the national level, it's the only sport where we really think about this, where it's not just about, are you winning games? It's, can you win beautifully? Can you win with talent playing at a high level?
It kind of gets to our discussion last week about the NHL and what's good. Is this good for the NHL? Is this bad for the NHL type deal?
Yeah, to some degree. It's more pronounced, I think, with soccer because a lot of observers of soccer in the United States are obsessed with the U.S. becoming another European style or, really good South American style team. A team that plays with flair, a team that plays with a lot of speed, a team that's bold and can attack Go ahead.
Now, this is sorry to cut you off, but since you're the soccer guy, now, do you think that's because they want not just success, but they want like highlight real success, like to capture America, to like be, not like a New Jersey, to bring a hockey analogy, not like to win like the New Jersey Devils of the 90s where you score a goal and dump a chase, but you kind of like more artistic to kind of capture a bigger audience. You think that's it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is it to a large degree. I think that you have to think about like where the U.S. came from. So the U.S. has been a scrappy team for a while. I mean, going back to the mid '90s, they made to the knockout round in the World Cup. That was not a very good team talent wise, but it was a good team in that they played, with control, and they would nick a goal here and there and then play good defense and be able to advance further than maybe you think. What I think U.S. fans have been waiting for is a team that no longer feels like, it gets a lucky goal and then has to basically be back on its heels while the superior opposition just starts rifling shot after shot at them, which has happened most of the time when the U.S. has played a higher level team. I mean, it happened against Germany in the World Cup in 2014. It certainly happened against Belgium in that World Cup. It happened against Ghana in 2010. And, one of the things about the Jurgen Klinsmann era was that Klinsmann was going to supposedly come in and bring this like attacking, proactive soccer. And, as it turned out, his teams pretty much played like everybody else's teams have played for the U.S., where they've had to be very pragmatic because they just don't have the player-by-player talent level that other teams have. And Mexico's a very talented team. Mexico's got a lot of very skilled players. So to answer Dr. Hoosier's question, is it something we should be celebrating? I mean, look, anytime you can get a point in the Azteca, you have to celebrate it. I mean, I don't care how you get it. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they came out and, they showed a couple of moments of inspiration and guys like Pulisic and a couple other players that they had were playing really well offensively. That is something I think we can celebrate. I just don't think the players are there yet. And, we can be angry about the fact that here it is in 2017, a decade and a half after we started asking ourselves the question of when are the players going to get here? We're still asking that question. But at the end of the day, that's, you're not going to get, some kind of like higher level soccer being played for the U.S. men's national team now. You're going to have to wait till the next coach comes in. Right now, it's like a survival cycle. Like they still have to figure out a way to qualify out of the hex after losing some early games, get to the World Cup, try to do well in the World Cup, and then, hopefully this next generation of talent's able to do something. But it's a ways away still.
Well, and again, as a soccer newbie, but I would say one thing, like you celebrate a result at the end of the day, however you getting a point in Mexico is a big deal for the U.S. So you celebrate that. I don't know. And again, you're way more knowledgeable than I am, but I hear this, 17 years later, you're still asking about where the players are. Well, maybe they're not here. And maybe like this is what American soccer looks like. As Brazil has its style, England has its style, Spain has their kind of national styles, Germany has its national style. Maybe this is the again, I know nothing, but maybe this is the American style, and maybe this is there's something to be said for embracing who you are rather than always looking so aspirationally at why aren't we Brazil? Why aren't we Spain? Well, we're not, but we can be the best version of what we are as a national team rather than, rather than keeping it. It seems to me like in some level, the goalposts just keep getting moved and moved and moved on U.S. soccer, where it's not just you get a result, but, it was too pragmatic. It wasn't pretty enough.
Well, look, I get what you're saying, and there's something to be said for that. I think the biggest issue is that the promised change in the way that the U.S. was going to be playing soccer and the skill development of younger players hasn't materialized. And I think a lot of people are antsy as a result of that. Now,
gotcha.
That I think will ultimately be the lasting legacy of Klinsmann's time here in the U.S. was that the systems that he put into place at the youth level, I think, will eventually start to yield results. And I mean, you ask a guy, I've heard like Tab Ramos, who's the I think the under 19 or under 21 coach, a talk. There's another guy whose name escapes me, who's the under 19 coach for the U.S. they talk about how the skill level of the younger players coming up is like leaps and bounds past what it was a decade ago. I just think that people became attuned to this problem a while ago, and for a lot of them, they feel like, you know, the generation of players that's there right now, you know, this should have been the generation that elevated things, and it looks like it's just going to take an extra decade to get where they want to go.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
He also had a desert island discs question. We'll tackle that another time. Those are the only questions I had, because the last thing we need to get to is a very important topic that has been taking the internet by storm here lately, and I'm fascinated to get your thoughts on things.
Absolutely. So so this is I'm making sure we're looking at the same French fry chart. This is the Food Republic all the styles of French fries ranked chart, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Now, what's crazy about this is apparently this came out in 2016, March of 2016. So it's more than a year old. I don't know who found it or commented. I saw it passing around Twitter because I knew which one you were talking about, but I don't know who kind of picked it up and started it yesterday. But there is a lot to break down here. There are a lot of problems with this ranking system, and there are a lot of questions I have. Go ahead.
Let me start off maybe by, I might be able to do this. Let's see. I'm gonna share with the audience.
Okay. The video audience watching live. If you're listening to this on a podcast, Google Food Republic French fry chart. And you can follow along with us.
I want to see if this actually works. I don't know if it is going to work or not. It doesn't look like it's working. No, not going to work.
Okay.
Yeah, I was hoping to actually put the chart up there, but it didn't actually work. So never mind. Anyway, so if you have to breaking the chart down, here's basically what you get. This ranking, and I don't know what their criteria were or anything like that, but
apparently their criteria was asking the people within Food Republic headquarters as well as the restaurant community. So that's
kind of like what the Ringer did with ranking fast food items, which is another thing we probably should get to. Absolutely, while we were gone. But anyway, their rankings from the bottom to the top, from worst to best. They had 12 different styles of fries. I think we could argue there's many more, but the 12 different styles of fries.
Okay.
Sweet potato fries were last.
No, there's 18. You got to scroll to the bottom.
Oh God. Oh, you're right. Smiley fries were 18th, which I'd never even heard of those before. Potato tornado was 17th. Pain soufflé was 16th. Cottage fries was 15th. Chili cheese fries 14th. Potato wedges 13th. Sweet potato fries 12th. British chips 11th. Steak fries 10th. Cheese fries 9th, crinkle cut fries 8th, shoestring fries 7th, curly fries 6th, garlic fries 5th, standard cut fries 4th, tater tots 3rd, Belgian fries 2nd, and waffle fries 1st. So there's a lot to unpack here.
There is.
So why don't you go ahead and start?
All right, so I can start any number of places because I of course did my own rankings in the time since you suggested this as a topic. But first of all, let me handle some objections I have here before I give my rankings.
Okay.
First of all, the potato tornado is not a thing. I don't know what that is, but that's not a thing. So we can.
I've never heard of it before.
I've never heard of it. Smiley fries I have heard because I have a kid who's 6, but they're like according to the packaging, they're like mashed potatoes inside like this like tater tot-esque smiley face thing. They're not terrible, but I would not rank them as a French fry thing at all.
I wouldn't consider tater tots fries either, but
right. So we'll get to that because that's going to be a point of discussion, I think. And I actually the bottom 3 or 4 I wouldn't rank. Like pomme soufflé, I've never heard of. They don't really look like French fries. So
right.
And then cottage fries, again, never heard of. They look just like.
See, now cottage fries, they do appear, and part of my big issue with this list is you can't separate the fries from the place that makes them.
Absolutely true. Right.
So cottage fries, if you ever go to Buffalo Wild Wings and get their buffalo chips,
okay,
those are cottage fries. They're disc cut fry potatoes, and they're not terrible. They're actually fairly decent. They would certainly rank higher than 15th. Okay, if you were taking those. But anyway, I digress. Go ahead.
No, so those are my biggest issues. The other big issue I would have on this list is having garlic fries, cheese fries, and chili cheese fries listed. I mean, for one thing, if you're going to list all those three things, especially the chili cheese fries, you have to have poutine ranked, because poutine and chili cheese fries are basically the same food group, right? They are French fry based with a kind of meat sauce and some sort of cheese topping on there. So so similar style. So if you're going to have try to tell me that poutine is unranked, then your list is bad and you should feel bad. But it just strikes me as like garlic fries. I'm sure I've had them, but I don't think of them as their own kind of special entity deserving their own listing on here. And I don't know, like putting fries with toppings on there, at that point it's a different thing you're ranking. You're ranking the combination, right, or like the entire meal rather than just the fry itself. So I think you have to eliminate all of those.
I totally agree. And I mean, I love garlic fries. They're great. But all garlic fries is standard or shoestring cut fries with cheese and garlic and red pepper on them. I mean,
right.
So at the end of the day, yeah, what you said is correct. I mean, you have to separate that. We can have a whole conversation about fry toppings. I'm down with having
absolutely.
that.
Absolutely.
But you can't have that be its own category.
No, absolutely. And so, okay, I'll do my top 5 because I don't want to spend all the time here. So anyway, my top 5 from 5 up. Number 5, I rank the British chips, which I have had, not in England, but I've had them at British owned eateries in the US, and I do like them. I like the size, the good crunch, the vinegar on them is really, really solid. So I'm a big fan of that. Number 4, the shoestring fry, or like the pommes frites, very underrated. I saw this one getting some heat from some of the people on Twitter, but very good with the steak frites, and the great thing about them is they're always crispy, important part of any fry, and you usually get a ton of them because they're so small, so you get a really good value on it. Number 3, I'm a fan of the standard cut French fry, just your regular old average French fry. I actually had that I almost had that number 1, but didn't want to be boring. So I like that. Number 2 is the controversial pick in our ranking here. I'm going tater tots at number 2 with the full understanding that if you do not consider them French fries, I would take them out. This is not a hot dog as a sandwich thing. So if you take them out as their own entity, that's fine, and they rank above and they rank high. And number 1, Belgian fries are outstanding. Very, very, very good. I like a good lean fry. I like a good very crisp coating on it, and they do it really well. I will also say the overranked one, or the one that I think is overrated, are steak fries. Because they're long, they're flat, usually they're kind of like very potatoy, almost doughy in the middle, and not a fan. So.
Well, okay, that's interesting. I didn't prepare a separate rating, but I will take a shot at some of these. I'll say this: I going off the steak fries thing, I think steak fries are great with steak because if you don't want a baked potato, which is a lot of potato,
right?
But you still want
you want potato, but not the full on. That's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot of potato.
Right. I think in that circumstance, they work very, very well. I guess my biggest issue with all of these is the type of fry is immaterial without considering how it's been cooked and by whom.
Exactly.
So, so I know a lot of the controversy about waffle fries being number 1 was, what did people immediately think of when they thought of waffle fries? So
Chick-fil-A.
Right. Yet, and I'm not a waffle fry fan. I'm really not. I think waffle fries, they get cooked. They're almost always cooked wrong. If they stick together in the fryer, then they don't get cooked all the way through.
They can have that steak fry problem where they get very potatoey.
Yeah. But I would not rate Chick-fil-A's waffle fries as that good. They have no flavor. I mean, they really have no flavor whatsoever. They don't dip well in any of their sauces. They don't really dip well in ketchup. Arby's waffle fries, and again, I'm not a waffle fry fan, but Arby's waffle fries are better than Chick-fil-A's waffle fries.
Right. I'm a huge Chick-fil-A guy, and I like their waffle fries good enough, but that's not the lure of not the, oh my God, I'm getting their waffle fries. No, they come with them and you eat them because you're a gentleman, but you don't, I don't seek them out. It's not, go ahead. Sorry.
And you take let's take the would you classify McDonald's fries as shoestring or standard cut?
That's a great question. I think I would go standard cut because when I think of shoestring or mastering, they're like the very slivery, like barely any potato in them. Like it's almost all the fry coating with a little bit. So I would consider them standard cut.
So take McDonald's standard cut fries and compare them to, say, Burger King standard cut fries. Same standard cut.
Right.
Yet one does it, I think, significantly better than the other one.
No question.
And it's like, so the whole idea behind the list, I mean, there's just so many functional issues with this list and the way that it's put together, that ultimately I don't even know what we're debating. And I got into a debate about it on social media. A lot of other people have, and then I've gone back and thought about it. I was like, what the hell are you doing? Like, this is I think there's a debate to be had here, but there's like 3 different debates. There's like, what is at its core the best type cut of French fry?
Right.
Then the second is, where are each of the types of French fries best made? Or, do we have a rank listing of like, these are the best French fries, period. And then the third is, what are the best toppings to put on the French fries? And I would argue to some degree, even that, like, I think the best French fries, the very best French fries are the ones that don't need any toppings. Like, I would argue that you can buy McDonald's French fries with just salt on them, and they're perfectly satisfying. Like, you don't really need anything else. And not a lot of other fries that do that. Like if you just bought Chick-fil-A waffle fries and they didn't have anything on them, I mean, that's kind of a dull eating experience in my opinion.
No, I agree.
Or like Culver's. Do you have Culver's?
No, we don't.
Talk about this. Okay, so Culver's does crinkle cut fries, and it's like a crinkle cut fry with just that. It's like you need ketchup, or you need something else to go along with it, or some kind of ketchup mayonnaise mix or whatever. So you have to think about it along those lines as well, and I feel like that's actually the one argument I'd have in it's why I almost think tater tots don't belong on this list at all, because tater tots are almost always good by themselves. You almost never need anything to go along with them.
No, that's a good point, and you're right. The place that makes them is huge, and it's such a weird distinction between the standard and like the British cut, because like if it's not, I feel like it can be a weird distinction. Like for me, my favorite French fries in the world are Thrasher's, which is a boardwalk place in Ocean City, Maryland, and Rehoboth Beach along the shore. And I think they might be British chips technically, because it's a big thing to get them with vinegar. But you're right, you don't need anything on top of them. You just get a big cup of them and you sit on the beach and you eat them, and they're great. But yeah, you can't separate place that makes them from from the fry. Like you can't talk about curly fries. Well, are we talking Arby's curly fries? Are we talking the seasonal beach type place? Again, curly fry kind of has the same waffle fry problem too. I like them, but yeah, if you get them clumpy or something, they can be just not as satisfying.
And curly fries almost always require batter of some sort.
Yes.
Like, I mean, you can have curly fries that don't have batter. Like, I think Arby's actually for a while made some curly fries there's a place that has curly fries without batter. It's a local place, actually. Now that I think about it, it's not a fast food place. They're just not that good.
No.
So it's like, again, like curly fries have the opposite problem from waffle fries in as much as like curly fries are almost never crispy. There's always a kind of a mush to them that creates an issue unless you batter them. And if you batter them, that's fine. But again, that's a different sort of metric than what this list was purporting to try to figure out.
Right. So you mentioned the toppings. What would you rank as your top French fry toppings?
Well, that's a good one. I mean, I mentioned garlic fries earlier. I really love it. Like a melted, like mozzarella provolone blend with garlic, not like a really heavy melt, like not like just dumping cheese sauce on it. That's not a favorite of mine at all. But if you like, but that's, the garlic fries like that, I would highly recommend if you can get them from a good place. And I think, if you've got, I mean, chili's okay, but chili gets in like chili's a rough one because chili will get the fries soggy, and if they're
Right.
already not crispy, that's a real problem. And
Right.
if they are crispy, they don't go well with chili generally.
Right. Yeah, that's why. I mean, that's the strong part on poutine is the I mean, the key to any good poutine is a good crispy French fry, because other than that, you're going to get, once the gravy is on there, then you're going to get too soggy. And why I like poutine better than the chili fries is, poutine's just gravy, so it's the flavor, but you don't have the sauce plus the meat, which is way too much.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm a poutine guy, but also, just straight, like the British style, the straight malted vinegar on fries is really, I'm not a vinegar guy normally, but I don't know if it's the cut of fry or the way it's cooked or just the combination, but it's really a good couple times a year. I'm not an all around guy, but it's a summertime beach vacation type taste that really does work well. And, of course, salt. If you're not putting salt on your French fries, you're just not living. So
I agree. And there's one other one that I'll toss in. It actually kind of goes along with the vinegar one that you just mentioned, but that's barbecue sauce. But it has to be like, it can't be like the thick tomatoey barbecue sauce. It has to be more on the vinegar side.
Like almost like Carolina type. Interesting.
I mean, it's still red. I mean, it's still going to have a tomato and molasses base, but you want it to be a little more liquidy, as opposed to being like something that's really coating the fry.
Right.
I've always enjoyed those. I find that you get a little barbecue sauce with your French fry. I prefer ketchup. I mean, I know that that's kind of cliche, but barbecue sauce is a nice change up, particularly if you get like a barbecue cheeseburger or barbecue bacon burger, some fries with the sauce that they have normally. That's a good mix.
It always does go well. Absolutely. So, well, speaking of, you probably have to check on your brisket pretty soon. So.
Yeah, I need to. That's I'm taking it on faith that it was just autopiloting on the smoker out there. So we'll see. Anyway, good stuff as always. Any final thoughts?
No, I think, now it's good that it's lunchtime, because now I'm hungry after a half hour talking French fry stuff. Well, it's an important topic. I mean, this was, a very flawed list that I think needed correction. I think we really bring that ability to correct your French fry list. So.
We did have one comment on the chat. Pat Walsh joining us. Hi, Pat. Good to see you. Is it bad? I feel somewhat satisfied with Nashville's controversial loss as payback for the Music City Miracle.
No.
I didn't think you'd be brooking any controversy by bringing that up here.
No, I don't feel bad for him. I mean, generally, it was in semi-seriousness, it was a bad call, but it was a first period or second period. I was kind of half following along.
First period.
So first period.
The only goal that was scored or even came close to being scored until the last 2 minutes of the game.
Right, but so it's a bad call. I do feel I don't feel bad for him.
I don't feel bad for them, but then I have no dog in this fight. You guys absolutely do. I will point out that neither Tennessee nor Buffalo was going to likely win the Super Bowl. I know Tennessee came close, but they didn't win the Super Bowl. But Buffalo was not going, I don't think, to win the Super Bowl that year. I don't know. I don't know if it's as like it seems disproportionate to get to the Stanley Cup Finals and then lose on a controversial call like that. I'm totally down with it. I'm totally down with it as revenge. But
all right, so two notes on that. One, I'll send you a piece, and I don't know how much I believe this, but my good friend Tyler Dunn, who's now Bleacher Report, I think this is when he was at the Buffalo News, did an oral history of the Music City Miracle, and like there are guys on that Bills team who legitimately thought that they could make that they had it set up, that they had a good enough team to make a run. Now I don't believe them because their quarterback was Rob Johnson or Doug Flutie, but
the Colts the next week, we would have easily beaten you. So,
but also I see where this is coming from, but also no, it's not the. I mean, the difference is that the Music City Miracle was the last play of the game. It was the game changer. This was a no goal in the first period. There were still 47 minutes or whatever of hockey left after that. So yes, bad call. Yes, they got screwed. Score another goal. Put some pressure on them. Make a save in the third period. You win at home. I I I always do have limited sympathy for bad calls that aren't like at the last play or in the last second, because yes, cascading things, can happen, but at the same time, you had 40 minutes, at least 40 minutes after that to score a goal. So anyway,
Okay, that's fair. I will defer to you on that, and Pat, I'll say, you know what, it's good satisfaction. It's good that I think there's been a lot of debate about, is Nashville a hockey town? Is Nashville a sports city? I think that, particularly on the hockey front, you can't be a hockey town until you've really experienced some degree of disappointment and
until Gary Bettman has screwed you over, you're not a real hockey town. So welcome to the fold, Nashville.
There you go. So anyway, good to talk with you, Brian, and thanks to all of you for joining us in the middle of the day. We'll be back maybe again during the afternoon, sometime next week. We'll check in with you, let you know what's going on. But you can catch up with us at Dr. GC or at BP Moritz or at Flipside Pod on Twitter. We'd love to hear from you. If you got questions or things you'd like us to hear or to talk about, just, hook us up with that stuff anytime during the week. Don't make us wait till the last second to ask like we normally do. So anyway, for Brian, I'm Galen. We'll catch you folks on the flip side. So long, everybody.
Bye.